We just had another massive UFC card sale. It's early in 2025, but this could be one of the biggest sales of the year. We'll look at how this stacks up with the other colossal sales in 2024, and we'll check out some other Khamzat rookies and first autos. As always, hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so first off, shout out to MMA Informed for even disclosing any of this information. You know, it was a private sale, so you didn't really have to give out any of that information, but I appreciate you for doing that. I appreciate you for letting the UFC card community know what this monster sale sold for. Some of the numbers from the sale: this was a 2021 Prism Khamzat True rookie, and it sold for $22,000 cash. These big sales are so good for the space. It gets people excited. You know, maybe it'll get other people that are not, you know, buying and into the UFC card space into it because of some of these monster numbers. And when we're talking about these massive sales, I always want to compare, you know, what were some of the other sales for this card, comps that were around this card, PSA 9, PSA 10, what kind of numbers are we talking about? And there were not many sales of this, obviously, because it's such a massive card. I'm sure a lot of people are just holding on to this. Maybe they bought in late, you know, when prices were high, or they bought in early when prices were high, whatever the case may be. There's only been a couple of sales and a couple of comps to go off of. So we'll look at two of those right now. The first one was from May 15th, 2024, and it was this one right here. Absolutely bananas, man, that this card sold for. And this was pretty recently, right? This is May, about 2 years ago, sold for almost $30,000, $30,000.98. So huge sale, man. And this is the 10 out of 10 PSA 10. So maybe that is why, you know, it's a little bit higher than the other ones. This was the image that I showed from earlier. So we have a PSA 10, 10 out of 10 bookend going for 30 grand about 2 years ago. So absolutely massive sale. The only other comp I could find was this one, which is a PSA 9. So not necessarily the same, but this was in 2023 and it sold for $10,079. So when you're talking about PSA 10 premium, you know, that is a big jump. From 10 grand to 20 grand, or from 10 grand to 30 grand is absolutely insane. But a really nice card here too, man. And 10 grand is nothing to slouch at, right? I'm definitely not saying that, but it goes to show that some people, you know, if you have a motivated buyer, if you have the card that you want, and if you can get that PSA 10, sometimes it is going to double, or in this case, triple the price that you can get for that card. And while we're on the subject of Khamzat Chimaev, I just wanted to look at some of his other rookie cards real quick before we move on into my next point. And I mean, he's had some monster sales. See, a lot of these were like 2022-ish, you know, around 2023, sometime in that period. But I mean, still some monster sales. I mean, you're talking multiple five grand sales here. And this is all, you know, within the last 2 or 3 years. And, you know, you have a 101 that sold for 3 grand, and this is going to be a rookie card, the gold vinyl, you know, decent. I think that's almost a decent buy for a 101. That's a pretty good deal. We have some other, a lot of select here, a lot of select sales. We got the Asia gold, really nice card. And again, just tons of cards over $1,000. So like Khamzat, as everybody knows, he's kind of been the hobby darling for, you know, since 2021, since the pandemic, since Panini era blew up. He's been one of the main chases, one of the main guys. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see that he has so many cards that have sold for over $1,000. And I'm definitely not surprised to see that he has some absolute nukes and one of the biggest card sales so far of 2025. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and sub, and think of joining the BAT crew. You get access to a private Discord where we talk about fights, products, card sales, and other UFC card related topics, as well as a bunch of other perks. Check out this video up here for more details about the BAT crew. So whenever we're talking about these massive nukes, big cards, long-term buys, you've been saving up a while, this is a big purchase. This is when, in my opinion, pop reports become very important. You know, both as a buyer and as a seller. You know, as a seller, you can negotiate, hey, this is a pop, whatever. There, you know, there's not many of these out there. Like, you need to pay a premium. I'm not just going to give this card away. And most people will respect that. It's logical. It makes sense. I think that's a good strategy when selling. But also the same, in turn, in my opinion, is whenever you're buying. You know, if there are a specific amount of cards that are all the same and some of the comps are similar, you know, maybe you can negotiate a better price for that, or just use those numbers to your advantage. So whenever making big purchases like this nuke that we're talking about today, or selling, you know, a nuke like we're talking about today, I think you really need to look at pop reports and kind of take some of that data into consideration whenever you're making those type of transactions. All right, so let's look at the Khamzat pop report here. And I'm going to parallel this into, you know, kind of a vintage conversation quickly after looking at these numbers. But we have, so there's 10 of these, right? There's 10 of the gold prism from Khamzat. 9 of them are graded. So almost every single one of these has been sent to PSA and is graded. And we have 3 10s and we have 6 9s. So again, with the 10s, right? Like if you're selling, like MMA Informed was, you got to be pushing hard. Hey man, there is only 3 of these out there. One of them sold for 30 grand. Like that is a big negotiating you know, tool in your tool belt that you can use whenever you're trying to move huge cards like this. You know, and also with the 6, like, you know, kind of in the other side, if you're trying to buy and you're trying to buy a PSA 9, you're like, hey man, I mean, this is the lowest basically pop that it's there. There's none lower. There's only one out there that's not graded. Can you give me a better deal on this? You know, with a card that's only got 10, you don't necessarily have a lot of room to negotiate, but that is something that you could, you know, potentially try and use as a tool. Okay, so if we look at these numbers, 9 out of 10 of these have been graded. That is a 90% grade rate on these cards. You know, so the difference in pop reports between modern cards like this and vintage cards like the one we're going to talk about is insane. I'm always shocked. I'm always blown away whenever I look at some of these vintage pop cards, and you really start to kind of play the percentages with like how many of these are out there, how many are even alive at this point, how many have gotten thrown away, and how many have gotten graded. So let's look over to one of the metrics that I use for cards. This is probably, maybe I'm being biased because he's like my favorite fighter, but he's one of, you know, the biggest cards you could get, in my opinion, with the Khabib first auto. And there's only 24 of these that have been graded with PSA, and we're including weddings in these. So if you guys know, there's 149 of the first auto like base cards that were manufactured, right? And only 21 of them have been graded with PSA. That is a 14% grade rate on those cards. Super low. Now, what's the reasoning for that? People see them, maybe the condition's not good, they don't send it in. That's definitely probably a factor. But also, I think there's just some of them that are not even out there anymore. They're not in circulation. People maybe died, they're buried in a closet somewhere. You know, something crazy happened, they got destroyed, got thrown away. I think you're definitely looking at some of those situations when you're talking about some of these vintage cards, and especially whenever these cards were released, you know, in 2014, you could get these for $50, $100. You know, there's a couple low sales like that. Most of them are more than that, but you know, it's a pretty amazing how affordable these were back in the day. And I think people didn't necessarily treat them with as much respect as you would, you know, now if you had this and it's, you know, multiple grand card. And if we look at the red inks of these, so the red ink I think is a better parallel because, you know, the gold Khamzat was of 10, right? Well, the red ink is a of 15. So it's kind of similar in the amount of manufactured supply that was out there, and, you know, and would be the amount of demand that people would want to get these in. So we're talking about 2 out of 15, that is 13% that are graded with PSA. I didn't look at Beckett. I'm sure there's more that were graded over there, but I was just curious about the PSA numbers between the 2 cards. And, you know, this again leads me to believe that a lot of these are either dead or not out there, or what I think is a good possibility, somebody's just hoarding a ton of raw cards of these, maybe waiting to get rid of them or doesn't like the condition. But again, I thought this was just an interesting contrast when looking at pop reports from modern and vintage. All right, now let's look at where this card stacks at the top UFC card sales of all time. And very high, man. I'm gonna, spoiler alert, it's very high on that list. We're gonna go on Card Ladder. Again, these are only the ones that have been reported. Like this card was a private sale, right? It was a cash sale outside of eBay, outside of any of the other auction platforms. So I'm sure that there's other cards that should be listed here. And if you guys ever hear about those sales, if you are the person that makes a big sale like that, please let me know, because I like making these videos and I think it's good for other people to know what these cards are going for too. All right, so first up, we have the famous card, about 80 gram. We got Connor 101, Jet Mint 10, Super Fractor from 2022, 74 grand, that's crazy. Khabib 101 auto, 47, 37, 33. Again, we got a lot of Khabib and Connor here. We got the 32 grand, man, 2024, huge sale here. Well, we looked at this earlier and this wasn't that high actually. So this was an interesting, almost like a flip. Maybe somebody bought in lower and then sold it for 32 grand. That's a crazy sale right there. So good work for whoever did that. We have the gold Connor 30. So we're still at 30s. We got the 10 to 10 that we looked at earlier. And, you know, the biggest sale of last year, from my knowledge, 30 grand, Alex Pereira, 101. That was amazing. Made a video about that. Really fun card. Don't know how Hasbullah's in here. You know, will forever will forever perplex me that he was ever selling for as high as he did. More Habib, more Connor, more Habib, more Habib. We're at 20, so we're right around that point, right? And then we're going to be right here, select concourse 101. So we know that the Khamzat Chimaev would be right above this select concourse, and that would make it the 16th highest selling card of all time if it was to be on this card ladder platform for the UFC. We'll take out this Dustin fight kit, right? Because that's obviously not a UFC card, but absolutely massive sale, man. Massive sale. Congrats to you, man, for making that sale. That's what I dream of doing one day, is either hitting a big card or buying in low, and then potentially, you know, at 3 to 5, 10x's, I can sell that and spend it real world money and still buy cards with some of that left over. I think that's the dream that everybody has whenever we're opening products, whenever we're collecting cards. It's one of the fun things about this hobby. Not only do you get, you know, cards that you love, history of MMA, of the sport you love to watch, but also there's potential for really fun flips and kind of the business buying and selling side as well. Will this be the biggest sale of 2025? I think it has a good chance to do so. We'll kind of look at some of these sales from last year. So we got 32 grand, 30 grand, you know, two of the biggest cards sales from last year. So if 2025 mimics 2024, this would be in the top 3 already by far. You know, the other biggest sale was around 14 grand last year. So I think this could be one of the biggest cards of the year to be sold. I mean, again, we're talking about 2025 with a rookie class that already has some pretty good hype around it. I mean, you know, we've got Mauricio Rufy, we got Gene Silva. If Gene Silva can win one more in spectacular fashion, like his first auto, his true rookies are going to be astronomical. And we know that he has a first auto out there. I've already seen the leak. I've seen the sneak peek. It's going to be there. We know Rufy is going to have cards as well in this. So, my fingers are crossed that we get some really big hits for 2025. And before we look at some of my favorite cards that Khamzat has, I want to talk about what is the long-term potential for Khamzat Chimaev. You know, we just looked at the biggest UFC card sales of all time. Every single person on that list was a UFC champion. Every single person on that list was a multiple UFC champion. You know, Connor, 2-division champ. You know, we had Potan sale. We had one of him in there. He was, you know, multiple title defenses, 2-division champ. Habib, obviously, you know, one of the coolest lightweight runs we've ever seen in the sport, and was also a part of the biggest pay-per-view in combat sports history with Conor McGregor. So, like, that is a lot of resume in order to bolster those card prices. So my question is, what is the long-term potential for Khamzat? Right now, he's selling as an all-time great. He's selling as a guy that has a resume of, you know, 3, 4 title defenses, multiple weight class champ. Is he going to be able to live up to that? I'm too scared to pay this type of pricing when it's not a etched in stone GOAT, when it's not an etched in stone champion. Now, he is incredibly hyped right now. I understand why. Like, I think he does have the potential to be one of these guys, but personally, for me to be buying in at these prices, way too risky for my blood, man. But let's look at what the long-term potential and what maybe some of the storylines could be for Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, right now we have him at 3. You know, he's basically, in my opinion, he should get the title shot next. It should be Khamzat. He absolutely destroyed Whitaker. That was all I needed to see in order to see Khamzat jump into the title race. I mean, Whitaker was, after that Ikram knockout, looked great. He looked super sharp. For Khamzat to go in there, immediately take him down, immediately literally rip his jaw off, dude. Rip his teeth out of his head with the choke was just insane, man. Insane. He's a crazy man. He's a wild man. He puts on fun, entertaining fights always. He deserves the title shot, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. You know, we had a lot of weird talk. You know, is DDP hurt? Did he break his leg? Are we going to get Kyle versus Khamzat for the interim? Like, a lot of weird chatter. We also have Kyle in the picture. I think him. I think Khamzat. Imavov to me is not necessarily worthy of this. Even though, I mean, actually, you know, I'm wrong. He ended up knocking out Izzy. If you knock out Israel Adesanya in the way that he did, you deserve to be, you know, in the contender category. So I take back that statement. He does deserve. It is a little weird to see him at number 1, though, in my opinion. Like, Khamzat to me should definitely be number 1. Not only with the storyline, the hype behind him, but also just of who he's beaten, how he's done it. So that's kind of interesting that he's at number 1. I didn't realize that before looking at this chart. And then of course we have DDP. Fun matchups, man. Will the long-term potential for Khamzat be there? Of course, it's always a possibility. In my opinion, I wouldn't be spending this much money on those cards for someone that is not a proven GOAT. Now let's look at some of my favorite Khamzat cards. We'll look at his true rookie, his first auto, and as well as a couple of rookie cards that he has that I think are kind of a good value play in an area that's not super expensive, that you might be able to get a nice card of his for relatively cheap. So first we'll look at obviously the true rookie, the card you would want of all of these. I have a red of this that's graded with PSA. It's a PSA 9, really nice card. In my opinion, this is a rare card where the best image, the best photo, and the best design is the true rookie. That doesn't happen very often, especially nowadays when we get this many rookie cards. I think a lot of times when we have, 15 to 25 rookie cards to choose from within any product year run, a lot of times the best card is not the true rookie or the first release card. In Khamzat's case, it is. This is probably in my opinion, his best card that he has out there. One of the best cards that he has out there. It's his true rookie. It's vertical. It's a good image. He looks scary. He's freaking ripped, flexing at the camera. He's screaming. Got the rookie badge. Really fun card. Really nice card. And anybody, in my opinion, who's a Khamzat fan, should try and get this true rookie because it's such a nice card. And in the hierarchy of rookies, obviously the first auto is going to be, maybe number one. I think some people would want the first auto above the true rookie. You can play that kind of however you want. But we got the 20 grand sale here, absolutely huge. We got this 17,000 sale. We got a Mojo, and these are both gold right here, right? And then we got the up 25 for 10 grand. So people are paying lots of money, man, lots of money. Let's take a look at this card. And this is a 10-10, so absolute tank, absolute unit of a card. And pretty good card as well. It's vertical. It is a celebration image, but at least it's readable. You got the 22 prism design, so pretty similar to 21 prism. Nice and clean. Nothing really too crazy about the design. It's not funky. It's pretty, we're familiar with this, bordering with a little bit of line work around it. It is a sticker auto, but still a pretty nice card in my opinion. I understand why people want this, and it's a desirable card. So yeah, man, 10 out of 10, you can't beat this one, but for 17 grand, that's a lot. Okay, now we're going to talk about just some of my personal cards that I like of his, and these are going to be a little bit cheaper than the ones we've just looked at. They still are rookie cards. They're from his rookie year, but you could potentially, get them for a lot cheaper. Definitely people that have a smaller budget, maybe you can look at some of these cards and maybe find one that strikes your fancy and you can try and get them. First, we'll talk about this rated rookie here. It doesn't necessarily have to be this Asia gold, but I love the Asia gold, man. This is a beautiful, beautiful card. I actually like this card design too. You have the rated rookie badging, which I'm a big fan of. I know a lot of other people are big fans of too. The Asia gold is an insane parallel. You got Khamzat in his fighting stance. Real readable image. You got the red here. You get this graded with PSA. This is going to be a super, super sharp card. And right here, you had it for $1,600, and that's in 2021. So in theory, we should be able to get this card much cheaper than that at this point. Now, who knows what the seller or the buyer wants to do, right? He's been holding on to it for a while. But if almost every card price has trended down since 2021, I think if you could get this card, I don't know what comps are going for, but shoot, five to 1,000 for an of 8 gold rookie that looks this good, in my opinion, would be a pretty good buy. Kind of a sneaky play on the back end. A lot of people are looking at first autos, true rookies, but the rated rookie of a nice image like this, nice readable image, really nice design. These gold of 8s shine like crazy. I think this is a fun card too. Another one that I wanted to talk about was these rated rookies from Chronicles. Again, you got the rated rookie badging. Kind of not necessarily a great image, but I just like the design of this card as well. And I actually had one of these in this red optic right here, and it was a good design, man. Fun card. I ended up selling it, but fun card, and it's relatively cheap, right? Like you're talking a 10, for $375, Gem Mint 10, Khamzat rookie for $375. That's pretty good, dude. So if you're kind of a budget collector and you don't have a huge budget to spend, you want to get something that is on the cheaper end, but still could potentially have some value in the future, I think some of these cards might be what you should look at. I mean, you're looking around, $200 to $500 for some of these, and they're fun cards. They look good, somewhat simple. You match this one with the PSA red, probably a good look. And in the future, you have a Khamzat rookie, rookie year, it may potentially go up in value if he's a guy that you think is going to be, an all-time great, or if you want to speculate a little bit, something to think about. Thank you for watching this video of the biggest sale of 2025. If you enjoy UFC cards, you'll probably like my channel, so check out these videos over here and subscribe for more videos just like this.